And that it means that as a result, depending on who we are, and where we live, we all may experience some form in that 99% of some form of inequality compared to someone else or some other group, but it could be vastly different whether we are a construction worker who is Irish Catholic living in New Jersey, or whether we are a single Latina mom who is undocumented living in Birmingham, Alabama, right? I mean, those are not the same kind of equalities we experience. But the history wrapping in us, we've kind of said, well, we're done with race, because we have a black president, so we're good on that. And that at the same time, what we really have to address is income, and sometimes we talk about wealth, more often we talk about income inequality, and that we actually rarely are willing to look at what's happening structurally, often that is historically produced, that has gotten us there. And I'm not going to talk a lot about the historical part, because first of all, most of you all already know it. But the relationship then to the second quote, which it is certain in any case that ignorance allied with power is the most ferocious enemy of justice, is that we are also in a context in which power has become increasingly concentrated in private hands, corporate hands, where corporations are given and considered to be people, personhood, and in a context that then shapes our politics and our power. At the same time, we have, over the past 30 years, because of our success, has been demobilizing communities. So that's people, power, and then the policies that shape opportunity. So I'm saying all that as a backdrop because in 12 minutes I can't say all of what I mean by that. But Lonnie said it at lunch, so I don't have to. Which is that we have a series of policies that started, if we look at the first, just to summarize it so we all are, you know what I'm talking about, which you do, which is in the first half of the basically from the 1930s to the 1960s, we essentially created tons of policies that invested in people and created for the first time a middle class, but it was not a racially equal middle class. It discriminated in job category. It sometimes explicitly discriminated. Sometimes could just discriminate by virtue of the fact that it could just say, well, if you're a domestic worker or an agricultural worker, you don't get Social Security benefits. So all of those things essentially created a middle class for the first time in this country, but that was not an equal middle class, right? And it did not look equal. And then created suburbanization. And so everything, all the inequalities we're looking, and in addition, and one fact that's very important, particularly for legal historians, if you look at the 14th Amendment, which was one of the Civil War amendment that its entire purpose essentially was to create citizenship for black Americans post-slavery. And if you look at Supreme Court case law, and this is the work of Professor Charles Black, what he found is that the vast majority of cases before the Supreme Court asserting First Amendment protections were asserted on the behalf and to benefit corporations, not black people. So that's a really important thing to understand when we look at the fact that now so many Americans experience inequality in a context of private concentration of wealth and power, not just in a few people when we think about the 1%, but it's actually what the top tier of that 1% represents in terms of corporate power and corporate wealth. So fast forward to then why, because I'm going to try to be positive, having just been really negative. And I want to frame it a little bit in what that then looks like in current today context, because in New York City, when you're in a city, which one is the largest city in the country, you knew that, right? But did you know that New York, because I actually didn't, I knew it was big and I've been living in it for decades, but I actually didn't really think about the fact that not only is it the biggest and the most diverse, it actually is as large as the next 3 largest cities combined. So Los Angeles, Chicago, and Houston, if you put them all together, they get to be as big as New York. Which is an astounding thing when you think we are literally 8% of the metro areas, 8% of the country's gross domestic product. So when you're in a city government with a mayor who had, and actually a city council by and large, the majority of the city council says, we are committed to eradicating inequality in one of the most diverse cities, as well as the largest city in the country, thinking about the power of local government to start to think differently about how you dismantle inequality in a current context is actually potentially, and I'm not arrogant enough to say we're going to get there, but potentially a transformative moment not just for New York City but for the country.